Hi and welcome to today's live chapter reading of Sugar and Spice by Phoebe Alexander. Chapter 1. Sigh. And that's why you're our first choice for going undercover in the park, my dad announced, pinning his dark gaze on me. What? No, I'm going to Greece next month to study sculpture with Christoph Christopoulos, I protested in a voice seemingly borrowed from my first grade self. Damn it, I sounded whiny. Greece? You just went to Haiti 2 months ago, my oldest brother Carson piped up from across the table. He turned towards our parents. Cy hasn't done anything to support the business since he came out of college, which has been 2 years now. My middle brother Clem was quick to add his 2 cents. It's about time you start pulling your weight around here, Cy. Last time I checked, we're all due to inherit an equal share of Sweet Enterprises, so it's time for you to step up. My mother laid a soft hand on top of mine, forcing my eyes to snap to hers. They're right, Cy. It's time for you to step up. I know they're the youngest, and we've given you some time to find yourself, or whatever you want to call it. But if you want to be part of this family business, you have to do your fair share. A dramatic sigh huffed out of my mouth as I resigned myself to whatever this stupid plan was. But I wasn't done arguing my point just yet. I don't think studying art is a bad excuse, I offered. After all, maybe my newfound knowledge of sculpture could benefit the park in some other way. My oldest brother rolled his eyes so hard it hurt to watch. Is there a chance I can wrap up this quickly and still make it to Greece next month? My eyes darted between my parents, begging for their blessing. Tell you what, my father said, leaning towards me with his hands clapped together, fingers entwined. You infiltrate the employee clique and identify the ringleader who's threatening to organise a strike, and you'll not only get to go to Greece on time, but we'll give you a $25,000 bonus. Sound good? Oh, it did sound good. Very good indeed. This is where I confess I've never had manual labour type job. I've never had to wear a uniform. My parents have owned a kiddie theme park my entire life, and when I came of age I got some cushy summer job in the park, usually in security. My brothers and I would sit high up in the control centre at the top of Cotton Candy Castle and monitor all the cameras surveilling different areas of the park. A lot of times that simply meant zooming in on all the MILFs with spectacular cleavage. Nice work if you can get it, eh? This is why, as you might imagine, I was particularly mortified to look at myself in the mirror before heading into the park for my first day undercover. I stood there, trying to look as tough and businesslike as possible, in my cheesy pink polo shirt, with its white collar and the Sweetopia logo on the breast. Even worse, when I arrived for my orientation, I would be assigned a pink and white candy-striped apron to go over the entire disgusting ensemble. I looked like a Ken reject in the bargain Barbie bin at the local toy store. No one knew who I was either. The bakery manager who would be my boss thought she was getting a new seasonal employee. The only people who knew about my undercover boss assignment were the ones in the boardroom when the decision was made. My mother, my father, and my 2 older brothers, Carson and Clem. I had to physically walk from the employee parking lot into the park. Walk? We had our own golf carts to carry us round the grounds, which of course I wasn't allowed to use. I rolled my eyes at the absurdity of it all as I made the trek from my beat-up Dodge truck. My parents wouldn't even let me drive my classic '69 Camaro, towards the huge fuchsia purple and teal arch that read Sweetopia in giant curly Q letters. I stopped at the gate with my hat pulled down low in my face. My parents insisted I disguise my identity, so I grew out my facial hair and found a pair of black plastic framed glasses. They didn't want anyone to have a single inkling that I could be Cyrus Sweet, the owner's youngest son, but now I looked like a douchebag hipster. Hi, I'm Marcus Young, reporting for duty. I chirped in a British accent, giving the Sweetopia employee a mock salute. Where the fuck did that accent come from? I'm not British. Shit. Getting through this without my typical brand of sarcasm was going to be an Olympic caliber feat. The employee, a skinny chap with huge grey-blue eyes, looked down at a clipboard. Got ya, he said, barely looking up. You're assigned to the bar's bakery in the... I know what it is, I retorted, trying not to sound like an asshole, but very much sounding like an asshole. A British one at that. The skinny dude gave me a shrug and I was on my merry way to Cotton Candy Castle, the spires of which were gleaming silver in the morning sun. The bakery was just inside the front entrance of the castle, which was where little girls and their families congregated to see the Red Velvet Queen. There was also a ride inside, one of those where you go on a boat and went through a tunnel with piped-in music and animatronic characters. This particular ride showed how the Red Velvet Queen and her friend Donut Dragon had defeated an evil sorceress to claim the throne of Sweetopia. Hashtag girl power and all that. I began to head straight to the bakery when I remembered that my oldest brother, who was in charge of casting for the part's costume characters, had hired a new Red Velvet Queen 6 months ago or so. The one we'd had for years frankly aged out of the role. Once the makeup could no longer conceal her wrinkles, she was asked to retire. Tough luck, right? Anyway, I had an insatiable curiosity about what the new queen looked like because both Carson and Clem had agreed she was hot, and they had notoriously different tastes. It was early and I didn't know if the queen would be out of makeup and perched on her throne. But I figured it wouldn't hurt to steal a glance to see if my brother's story could be corroborated. If she was a dog, I thoroughly planned to give them hell about it. My oldest brother was married, so I was sure his wife would love to hear Carson's thoughts on the matter. I tiptoed down the hallway, realising if any other employees caught me back here, I would be in big trouble. I didn't want to make a bad impression on my first day, but curiosity killed the cat and all that. I slowly pushed open the heavy doors that sealed the Queen's throne room and scanned the long, elegantly appointed chamber for. My eyes landed right on the gold throne. There, regally perched in the centre of the plush crimson cushion, was the most beautiful, elegant royal creature I had ever seen in my life. She had glossy black hair, falling in big sumptuous curls around her ivory shoulders, lush creamy décolletage spilling out of the top of her red velvet corseted dress, and the most exquisite red lips I'd ever seen. Her nose, cheekbones and graceful neck were sculpted by a master artist, and the most entrancing of all were the glimmering gemstones looking at me from between thick, dark lashes. Her perfectly groomed eyebrows shot up as soon as she saw me. "Oh, sorry, wrong room," I called out in that blasted English accent, and went flying back through the doors as though I'd just seen a ghost. Okay, maybe not a ghost, but she's definitely had to be some mythical creature of some sort. I had never been startled, or even slightly taken aback by a woman's beauty before. I guess there was a first time for everything, but I was simply in awe. Maybe it was just a costume, but I'd never seen anything quite like her. Clem and Carson said she was hot, but they didn't say she was a goddess. Despite my lowly stature as a seasonal bakery cashier, I would have to find a way to make her acquaintance. The sooner the better. No, wait, I'm going back to talk to her right now. If I'd learned one thing since becoming an adult and travelling around the world, it was there's no time like the present. Jolie. I swear to God the guy who just come in here had a British accent. Where the hell are they getting these employees? Apparently hiring American doesn't mean anything to the Sweets. I finished up my internal rant, erased any lingering thoughts of that rude interruption, and tried to look as regal as my colleagues fixed the red velvet curtains around my throne area and adjusted the lighting so it pierced right into my retinas. I was usually half blinded by the end of my workday, and I couldn't even get vision insurance. "You all ready, Jolie?" the throne room manager asked. She reached up to brush a stray hair out of my eye. "Our guest will be here any minute." I nodded, affixing a royal smile to my face, and warming up my wrist to do my queenly wave approximately 5 zillion times throughout the course of the day. The hundreds of little girls, and a few little boys, don't want to leave them out, who made my throne room their first stop of the day in Sweetopia, were the real die-hard fans. They'd read all my books, seen all the cartoons, they probably owned a red velvet doll, queen or two. And a few of the little girls showed up wearing their own red velvet queen dresses. It was an adorable sight, seeing them all lined up out to the throne room door. They were always so excited to meet me, and I wanted to be everything they imagined that I would be. The only reason they picked me to play this part is because I looked good in a corset, had a pretty face, and the little kids weren't scared of me. But trust me, I'm no queen. I was all set to greet my subjects when I noticed the British guy pushing through the red velvet curtains again. What's this dude's problem? He gave me a sheepish smile, and I noticed he was cooked in a quirky sort of way, with the beginnings of a beard and black plastic rimmed glasses. He had that sort of hair that always looked a little tousled, long on top and like he'd been running his fingers through it all morning. And he looked younger than me, maybe mid-twenties. I couldn't deny that I sort of wanted to hear his accent again, but he appeared to be waiting for me to speak. Yes, I ventured, hoping that would help him relax. I was sure he was new around here and probably a bit disoriented. This place could be overwhelming at first. I remember my orientation all too well. Upon hearing my affirmation, he approached me with his hand outstretched. Good morning. I just wanted to introduce myself. He kept walking and talking, but when he reached me, he just stood there awkwardly with his hand out. Boy, that accent sure does funny things to the area of the V in this corset points towards. I took his hand into mine to shake because I didn't think he'd ever work up the courage to touch me. His eyes were certainly glued to mine, though. He had no shyness when it came to eye contact. They were so deep and brown, I was afraid of getting lost in them, so I quickly averted my gaze to his lips. Now that was a landmine too, as they were outlined in manly scruff and looked so damn kissable that once again I moved my focus to some place that would allow me to keep my cool. The Sweetopia logo on the breast of his pink polo shirt. Ah yes, work. Nothing was more effective at dousing any flames of desire I might be feeling than the thought of the fucking sweets and their fucking lame-ass evil empire corporate. Well, are you going to tell me your name? I prompted him. He straightened up immediately, though he was still gripping my hand tightly. Yes, ma'am, I'm Marcus Young. His grin never faltered. I'll be over at the Bard's Bakery if you'd ever require my service. As though he had finally managed to gather his wits about him, he raised my hand to his lips and pressed those beautiful plump babies against my skin, making my insides turn to goo. It's a pleasure to meet you, Marcus. And boy, did I mean that. It would be nice to have a polite, handsome gentleman over at the bakery. I couldn't go there during work hours, of course. What queen visited a bakery when there were servants to deliver anything she could possibly desire? But I did stop in there before and after work pretty often. Even queens needed their coffee fix. Oh, where are my manners? I'm the Red Velvet Queen, I told him, in my royal voice, trying to stay in character. It was only seconds before the ropes dropped and my fangirls and boys came squealing into the throne room. I assure you, Your Highness, the pleasure is all mine.